Welcome back to GRN. This is Dave Lindsted and my daughter Emma Lindsted, and today we want to discuss the California wildfires. Are they the cause of arson or are they climate change?
You know, I really don't know. There's been a lot of people saying, oh, this is climate change, this is another natural disaster like North Carolina or other things that have happened recently, with all the snow and the ice in Kansas City. But then again, I'm also hearing a lot of people saying that there are some good reasons to believe that this isn't natural.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't several years ago when we had another wildfires issue. That woman caught I think it was an immigrant trying to start a fire in the field out by her farm. Mm-hmm. And we've also watched other videos where other people have been running around the city starting little fires here and there. And I don't know if it's just for playing around. I don't know if it's a joke, but it shows you that people have the capacity to do that stuff.
Yep. I know one that really stuck out to me recently was there was this homeless guy that came in front of a hotel in Los Angeles, like right before this fire stuff is starting up, and he, on camera, security camera, lights a fire right under a wooden gazebo in front of this hotel, purposefully trying to set the whole thing ablaze.
Yeah, I think there's a deep, dark agenda in this world to try to upheave modern or conventional governments and conventional thoughts and to break way, to make the way for new ideas to come through and other things to happen. We look at Gavin Newsom, and he's quite a mess when it comes to California. I watched him in one interview where they were asking him, well, this big reservoir wasn't filled. It was supposedly down for repairs, and it's been down for over a year, and it had another year before it was supposed to be done. And they say it has a rip in the liner, and that seems like an awful long time to replace the rip or fix the rip in the liner. But and he brushed this off, and he says, "Well, that's local. We had all the water we needed. Well, no, wait a minute. Well, this one we didn't. It's local."
Yep, and then he's also, when confronted about the fire hydrants not having enough water pressure to do anything, he goes, that's just a problem everybody has. Yeah. We all know that fire hydrants don't actually fight fires.
It's just utter nonsense and silliness. But, we have seen him say some pretty outlandish things, and I think we have a clip of him saying something right here.
Yeah, so there's a clip of him talking with a CNN interviewer, and he says that they had 120 fire engines set up and placed where they needed to be for the fire 2 days before the fire.
Makes you wonder if he had all this stuff all ready to go before the fire became an issue. Mm-hmm. Why and how did he know this was going to be an issue? And why was it such an utter failure to stop the fire?
Yeah, because it sounds like he was ready for it. It sounds like he might have had foreknowledge of it and then just chose not to act on it.
Or to put up a fence that looked like he was going to act on it, and then we didn't actually have the resources. In fact, I watched one video where they interviewed the DEI hire that was running the fire department, and I don't have a problem with a woman or a man or even someone who's practicing homosexuality running a department, but they've got to be qualified to do it. And she came back and said that she wasn't given the tools. Her fire people don't have the equipment they need to fight this fire.
Well, what's even funnier is that she came out and she said that more than being prepared to fight fires and more than training on how to fight fires, she wants women in her fire department. So she was caught specifically turning down white men because she has a bias against white men and only accepting women and people of color into her fire department. And on top of that, she's also putting them through DEI training on how to be diverse and inclusive and accept it. Why are we learning about that instead of how to fight fires?
Yeah, I saw another interview where she was promoting women in the fire department. I don't have a problem with women being in the fire department and being part of that help. And someone said, well, how's a woman going to drag my husband out of the fire? And she says, well, if we have to drag your husband out of the fire, there's a bigger problem, and insinuating that it was his fault that he was stuck in there. And it just blows me away that somebody would have that attitude to think that I should, as a citizen who was caught by accident, I mean, look how fast this fire came, and look how fast floods came, that I was capable of any time saving myself.
Yep. It's really sad. And I mean, I'm not going to, if I'm caught in a fire and somebody comes to save me, I'm going to be happy that somebody's even there to save me. Whether it's a man, woman, anything in between, I don't care. I'm just glad somebody's saving me. But my favorite videos are like the videos where women go, oh yeah, men and women are equal. We can do anything a man can do. And then they play like the men on the oil rigs getting hit by the chains and all the bruises. I don't want to do that as a woman. And I have to wonder if a woman is built to be able to do some of the things a firefighter has to do.
Well, I look at the, remember when Trump was shot and hit him in the ear, and they had all his protection around him, and they had a couple of women on that team. Now, I don't have a problem with women being on the Secret Service and part of all this, but there was a difference in the reaction. Men tend to run to the problem to solve the problem. Women tend to hang back and to try to protect everybody out here. They don't go into the problem. They're trying to help outside of the problem. And you could see that when he was shot, the women were tucked behind other people, and the men were throwing their bodies over Trump. Now, that doesn't mean that some women wouldn't do that, but for the most part, it's a difference in thought, the thought process, what a man thinks of, what a woman thinks of, and what are priorities to each.
Well, most women are going to look at a situation and they're going to think, and then they're going to act after they've made like a strategy for it, or after they've thought through what they should do, because women kind of fill in the gaps of what a man does. But a man is going to look at a situation and he's going to go, all right, I need to do something, and he's going to charge right into it. Women find the problem, the man fixes the problem.
Right.
And so I think that that's something you see a lot with that situation is the men went in to fix the whole assassination problem. Well, the women are like, oh, well, these people need help too. We need to make sure that these people aren't hurt.
And it's not a put down to them. It's just the way we're wired, the way we're made. And that's why some things are programmed better for men to do, and some things are programmed better for women to do. And the man cannot hold a candle to the care and love that a woman can put out for a patient.
Yep.
For elderly, to take care of people, and men are all about fixing the problem and not comfort and care.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite videos. It's not about the nail. The woman has the nail in her head, and the guy is trying to tell her to take the nail out, and she's like, I just want you to listen to me and understand that I'm in pain and sympathize with me being in pain. It's a fundamental difference in the way we think. And so while I don't think it's bad to have these women on the fire force, I think that a completely woman fire force is the worst thing that this person could ever choose to do.
Yes, and I have no doubt in my mind that to have men and women both on the fire force will make the fire force ultimately better, but as long as we're in the right roles. I think that's the biggest part, is the right roles, the right, logistics management versus in the flames with I don't know if you guys ever wore all this, but when I worked at a hospital, I had to put on my breathing apparatus and the suit and all that stuff, and that is heavy stuff. And once you get all that on there, now you got to carry someone out that's 150 pounds, or you have to swing a big axe. I mean, it takes a lot of effort.
Yeah, and then you wonder why all the firefighters that you see, they're all like big and buff and everything. Yep. They have to be.
They have to be.
Can a woman manage to get that much muscle and be that effective in the scenario,
Yeah, I don't know, and I'm not going to guess on that, but the thing that I would say is if we maintain our training and you have to pass a certain course, if a woman can pass that, I'm good with it.
Yeah.
If she can't, then I'm not. Even a man, if a man can't pass the course, I don't want him either.
Yep.
He needs to be able to do the job.
Yeah. It's kind of like the male athletes that can't do it in the male field, so they become a woman and become the best of the best in the woman field.
Right.
There's a standard If they're not meeting it, they're going to go around it to try and meet that standard. But there needs to be a solid standard for everything.
Yeah, and I think that the DEI issue is a sideline to what's really maybe going on here.
Yeah.
We see Gavin Newsom saying that he's bringing trucks in and getting things ready for this fire ahead of the fire. But then we also saw another guy, and his name was Mark Pastrella, I think. Pastrella. And he is, well, you looked him up. Who is this guy?
So he is the director of the Los Angeles County Public Works. So he's the one that basically deals in the engineering of the city, engineering for floods, engineering for fires and everything. So this is a guy that really knows what's going on.
Exactly.
And so I think we're going to play that clip, right? So we're going to play the clip where he's talking and he's discussing the fires, and he's discussing how California can bounce back.
National Guard men and women that have been on here, we pre-positioned 120 engines, helicopters, dozers, water tenders. We did that on Sunday, 2 days before this event.
To rebuild these communities back and rebuild them better than they were when we started this fire.
How they can build back better is basically the slogan he uses.
Right.
He paraphrases it a bit. And then he says, we can build back better from when we started the fire. So it might have been a slip of the tongue, but if you've got this idea in your head that you started the fire, did you start the fire?
You know, it's kind of funny you say that. When I was a kid, we played a practical joke on a guy, and we used to love doing that. And it's easy for you to say things, pretending to be somebody else, someplace else, that you say things to what you're party to. So example would be, we called this guy and pretended like we were the police. And we said, we'll meet you, we're at the police station, we're going to come and meet you at your job. And the guy that was making the call said, we're going to meet you here. And it was very subtle, but he actually caught on to the guy was talking as if he was already at the location, even though he was pretending to be someplace else. And that makes you wonder if that isn't what this guy did.
Yep. It's very common. And I always think of that. I also think of the clip from Legally Blonde, where she's trying to get the guy to admit to being the one that committed the murder. And she goes, and what's your boyfriend's name? And in the heat of the moment, even though he didn't want to say it, he still said the name of his boyfriend.
Yeah.
And everybody goes, oh!
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder, is it he's relating to them and he's saying it as he thinks that they started the fire? Or was this heat of the moment, he's talking, he's getting passionate, and he admits it?
Yeah. That's a hard one to know, but I do know this. He did say, from this, we can build back better. So the disaster's not even over. It was still burning at this time, and he's already talking about rebuilding. Well, Gavin Newsom said, well, this is the opportunity for us to put out LA 2.0. Well, in order to do LA 2.0, there has to be a lot of infrastructure changes, and there has to be a lot of other changes. So it seems to me that a fire burning everything down would be a smart way to help get your funding and to be able to do this infrastructure.
Yep, they've already made the promise before the fire started that they were going to have the first smart city in the world by 2028 and that it would be LA. But people didn't want that. Nobody wanted that. People were fighting against them actively because they didn't want to become the first smart city. And then this cute little fire just starts up out of nowhere and takes out all of Los Angeles 3 years before the deadline on a smart city.
It's interesting. One of the things that I know from history is, as we were crossing the frontier, because we've purchased that part of the United States from Mexico, people are going to tell you that we stole it. We didn't. We purchased it. Yeah, we had a war about it, but we still bought it from Mexico. As we're going there, all the people ahead of the pioneers said all you could see was burning. They pulled into California, and it's just black smoke everywhere. California burns all the time because it's so dry. and there's so much wind, and there's nothing to really stop the wind from moving the fire. And that's what's happened with this. I don't know if they intended for things to be as out of hand as they are, because they've had huge winds that have really whipped this stuff up and really made things burn like you wouldn't believe. In fact, here's a burning car behind us. You can see it's just about melted on the streets here. But I don't know. I used to think that people wouldn't be this mean, this evil, because there's loss of life that happened here. But on the other hand, I think that we're beyond that. I think that the government would do anything with anybody else's life to get to where they want to be and what they want to do.
Well, I'm going to say something really crazy here. There was a lot of talks with some of these hurricanes that went through of these locations being spots that have already been bought for mines, for different types of metals and stuff. And then a hurricane hits like right over that mine and clears out the residents who didn't want that to become a mine. Can they control the winds? And did they control the winds? Or am I just being crazy?
You know, there is a lot of truth to us being able to facilitate weather. Now, I don't know if that means to make a tornado happen from nothing, or to make rain happen from nothing. I think the old rainmakers, you know, where they would try to cause it to rain. But I do know that it's an actual fact that we seed clouds. So when there's clouds in the air, we can actually spray stuff into the air that makes them rain better, that makes them rain harder, makes them more water. I don't know that we can make a rainstorm come, but I know we can make a rainstorm more. And it makes you wonder what other abilities we have, and are those being used? Because one of the other things, it's interesting you say that. I'm looking back here in Hawaii. Remember the big fires through Hawaii? It says here that realtors were forcing people really heavy-handedly, trying to get them to sell their property. And all these celebrities and all these investors are trying to buy this property up in Maui, where this fire took place. So it looks like this was done in order to facilitate something else.
Well, you know, you bring up celebrities. And my first thought is, how much do we cater to them?
Oh, yeah.
Because there's also been talks going around of Diddy was recently arrested.
Yeah.
And he might be releasing a list of all the people that participated in his stupid parties and all the horrible debauched acts that took place during those. How many of those homes that are in LA and California that belong to celebrities needed to go up in flame?
You know, that's a good point. There's and you would think to yourself, well, someone would never be this evil to try to protect themselves and other. Would they put people's lives at risk? And I think the answer is yes. You know, we even see it throughout history. You know, we always want to go back and see how good we were and how depraved we are. We're all depraved. And I can see this being an easy thing for someone to do. You can sit in an office and send people to war and never see war or the atrocity that befalls the soldiers that are in war. And I think that we have that same problem today as far as the wildfires go. You know, if someone did set this, and I'm more than halfway convinced it was a purposeful fire. I would like to say it got further out of control than they expected, but I don't put it past people anymore to put human life at risk for their own promotion of power and wealth.
Well, I also think about it personally, too. It's easy for anybody to separate the idea of a person from, like, personhood.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, let's say I know a fire was set in Kansas City, and I say, oh, that's sad, people are dying, I'll send $3 to help. But if my grandma lives in Kansas City, I'm not sending $3, I'm sending $300.
Yeah.
You know, you belittle it when it's not personal to you. So it's easy to look at somebody and go and forget like that they're a person and that they have people around them too. And I think it's even a slipperier slope when you've already committed atrocities beforehand. Like what would have been like a Diddy party, you know? You've already overstepped the line. How much easier is it to move the line again?
Yep. Now the other thing we hear is that there seems to be possible hero. Elon Musk, I think, has been putting Starlink up so that people would still have the ability to contact other people and to communicate, and for the fire departments to organize and all that stuff. And I think he did this also on the East Coast after the hurricane. He did this in Ukraine. He put up his Starlink infrastructure there and gave it to them for free.
Yep. And there's also been reports of his Teslas. In that area, they have a biohazard, or all Teslas, except for a few specific models that were new, like the first ones, have a biohazard mode where they stop taking in air from the outside without filtering it or something like that to ensure that gases that are toxic don't get into the people inside. And this specific mode saved a woman's life, and she survived one of the fires. I think it was the Easton fire, because of her Tesla going into this mode. But nobody knew that it did that.
Right.
And so he's out here helping, he's doing all that. But there's also, we didn't know that this mode existed in the car. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. And you know, it looks like things are starting to fall in place with this new government. You know, we've got, it looks like maybe a deal with the hostages with Trump, even though Biden has been trying to take credit for this. And I think it was mainly Trump and his team. And here we have Elon Musk coming to the world's salvation, if you will, you know, bringing them communications and stuff that are needed. But it makes me think of Revelation 13. And this is this is a setup for things that could happen in the future. It says in Revelation 13 that there was going to be a one world government. And that through the one world government was going to come the beast. And the beast was going to raise up a one world religion. And they would worship the beast through this religion. And it says in the end of Revelation 13, it says, and he will cause them to take a mark on their head, that they cannot buy or sell without this mark, without giving to the beast. And I find it interesting, as much good as what it sounds like with Starlink, and all the things that are being brought in, the way the world is following Trump, that we're not setting up for the Antichrist to take over. Now, I don't know that I'm necessarily saying Trump is an Antichrist, and I just don't really believe that. I don't know that I think Elon Musk is an Antichrist, but they're giving the tools needed. You would say, those are good tools. They are meant for good. Well, they can also be used for bad.
Yep, definitely. And I think we're seeing a lot of this, the foundation for this coming out. I mean, I was in the health food store the other day, and I was getting carrots for, I think it was Thanksgiving. So this is a few months ago. But I walk up to pay, and there's this little gadget next to the card reader, and it says, use your palm to pay through Amazon. And I know that a few years back there was a huge scare because I think it was in Sweden. They were putting the credit card chips right here in your hand. Yeah. And people were paying that way. And we're seeing good steps towards doing this. I mean, how many times have I opened my phone and been able to use my thumbprint to put in my card information? I'm already doing it, and I don't even think about it.
You know, what's really neat is I was reading an article about a tattoo that can actually hold data in the tattoo ink. So it holds data in there. And these things are not the mark of the beast, but they are facilitating the ability for the Antichrist, for the beast, for Satan, to use these pieces of technology to control the world. I look at Starlink. Starlink is an uninterruptible internet provider. So in other words, you have internet no matter where you're at with Starlink. It's not, You know, we live kind of, we used to live kind of in the country, and not everybody had a wire pulled out there yet, and so we couldn't get certain types of internet, certain types of phones, and stuff like that. With Starlink, that makes that unnecessary. And then I look at what they call the Internet of Things. Everything is tied to the internet. In fact, I haven't even updated my tablet because it's got new AI technology coming out, and I really don't want it.
Yep. And I mean, I look at this, and Starlink might not be the weapon that the Antichrist uses, but it's getting us used to it.
Yes.
Using my thumbprint to pay is getting me used to the idea of having a specific marker in my hand to pay, regardless of whether or not that's what they're doing on purpose.
Right.
It's a cool idea. Oh, I can just swipe my palm and I pay for it. I don't have to fiddle with my wallet and pull out my card. And even the card was a step down from checks, which was a step down from cash, which was a step down from goods. You know, it's a cool idea. It's a fascinating idea, but it's preparing us.
Absolutely. I think that we're being set up to participate under the one world government, and that we won't be able to escape it. You know, we're going to have things that tie us to it. You know, one of the things I find interesting is if I talk about something, all of a sudden my feed, if I'm using social media or look at news pages, magically have those ads in them and have those things in them, even though I'm not directly telling anybody anything. And so I think it has the ability to spy on us. You know, one of the neatest things that Apple has invented is these AirTags. And the AirTags work by pinging other Apple devices around it. So if you report an AirTag that's missing, and other phones will find that AirTag and report where it's at. And that tells you that this is all tied together into one big network that could easily be used against man.
Yep. And it's funny, because I was just talking about getting us used to it. That's one of the biggest jokes in my generation, is leaning into your phone and saying, I'm saying this for my FBI agent. Or, isn't it going to be funny when my FBI agent looks through my search history and they see me researching such and such poison because I'm writing about it? Why are we so used to the idea of being spied on that we just
allow it?
We just automatically assume that there's going to be somebody listening to us at all times.
Well, prepare yourself for the end times. Put your faith and trust in Jesus Christ. That way you will be able to go home in the rapture and not have to deal with the tribulation. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.